It's Bristol, baby. I heard that a lot this weekend, so I had to start with that on today's podcast. Welcome to the Sunroom. Welcome to Sunroom Story Time. I am your host, Scott Bedgood, and this is my podcast where I sit down and I tell stories from my sunroom. It is dark once again early in the morning here outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. But I'm excited for this episode because I'm going to tell you about my weekend with my son in Bristol, Tennessee at the Food City 500. My son's first NASCAR race, my second NASCAR race, but first time as an adult and first time in Bristol. And it was a great weekend. It was super fun. I want to talk about the whole experience, what it meant to us, and just share my insights on going to a NASCAR race, because I think a lot of people haven't done that, or people who have maybe haven't done it in a while, and it's really, really fun, and it's worth talking about. So we're going to get into that, but before we do, I want to say thank you for listening to the first 4 episodes of this podcast. Thank you for your feedback. Still getting feedback from even episode 1 yesterday. Somebody reached out about it, and so that's really cool. And just, as people work their way through these stories and they give me feedback, it's been really great. And last week we talked about the time I scammed my way onto an under 30 list, which was really fun to relive. And we've got a lot of other stories coming up. And so thank you for listening so far. Please like and subscribe. Please comment. Just give me some interaction on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Please give me reviews. As I'm building this podcast, all of that stuff is just so helpful. But for now, let's get into story number 5, which is about my time in Bristol. So this is your 5th Sunroom story. Okay, I have to start off by admitting something. I never wanted to get my son into NASCAR. It happened by a total accident. For background, my son, his name is Carter. He was born in 2020, so he's 6 years old. And from about the age of 1.5 years until about 5, his entire life basically was the Cars movies. We have, I don't know, I need to count one day, but we have hundreds of cars from the Cars movies. He was obsessed with collecting every single one. And you may be like, how many really are there? There's Lightning McQueen and Mater. And no. Like, the opening race of Cars 1, where there's Lightning McQueen and Chick Hicks and the King, and they're racing it out. Well, there's 40 other racers in that race, and they all have names, and Disney Pixar sells those cars from time to time, kind of like baseball cards, like they become collectibles. Oh, which one is available? And so we have almost all of those because we used to go to Target and Walmart all the time. That was like his favorite pastime, was going to Target and Walmart trying to buy a new car. It caused all kinds of meltdowns over the years because they wouldn't have new ones because we would literally have all the ones they sold. But I mean, he knew all the names. We got the Billy oil changers and the Paunchy wipeouts and all these random names. It became actually very fun. But that was his total obsession. 2 years in a row, he had a Thunder Hollow birthday party, which is Thunder Hollow's Cars 3, the Demolition Derby. And so that was just like all he cared about. And we always thought, like, man, if he knew about NASCAR, like, he'd probably love it. But part of me had also always kind of avoided showing him NASCAR because I didn't want him to get into it because, it takes up like a lot of time on Sundays. And I didn't know anybody that was watching NASCAR anymore. And I didn't want him to get into it, to be honest. And, I had been into NASCAR. So my background with NASCAR is that in like the mid 2000s, like maybe 05 to 07, I watched it. My dad, the company my dad worked for was one of the sponsors of Tony Stewart. They were like a minor sponsor of Tony Stewart. So that's why I'm an OG Tony Stewart fan. And that was the era where, he won a championship. We went to one race. We went to the Vegas race, and it was really fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked watching NASCAR, but then kind of like everyone else, just sort of faded out over the years, and to the point where, over the last 10 years, I didn't know a single new driver. I had a friend in college who was obsessed with NASCAR. He was from Virginia, and I mean, he would watch every race. He'd watch the truck race on Friday night. He'd watch the Saturday series, and he'd watch the Cup Series on Sunday. And he would record all of those. And I remember one time we were at his house and we're watching the Oklahoma football game at his house, and the DVR tried to kick us off the game and change the channel to the, I guess it was probably like the Busch series or the Xfinity series. And we were yelling at him, like, what are you doing? Why are you recording this stupid thing? And so that was kind of my last interest in NASCAR. But he got some of our friends into it. They went to some races, and he was a big Denny Hamlin fan. So I was very aware of Denny Hamlin and maybe like a few other guys like Brad Keselowski, some of these guys that are still in the series. But most of my knowledge stopped in about 07, 08. And so I didn't really want to get back into NASCAR, and it was not something that I was thinking would be part of my life at all. And then literally this is what happened. In March of last year, so March of 2025, my younger son, who at the time was a year and a half, even at a year and a half, instead of being obsessed with like the Cars movies, he was just like really, really into basketball and like playing basketball in the Fisher-Price hoop. And he would call it gunk. Like instead of dunking, he would just talk about gunk all the time. I'm going to gunk on you. So it was March and basketball was on all day long. And I was like, buddy, check this out. So I pull up the TV and I'm trying to find March Madness games, and my older son Carter, he sees NASCAR like on the screen as I'm flipping over, and he goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, it's called NASCAR. It's actually pretty cool." And I just turned it on, and he just locked in. And then the thing that really got him completely locked in was that my wife went to elementary and middle school with a current NASCAR driver named Chris Buescher. So my wife was like, I know one of those drivers. His name's Chris Buescher. We were, friends when we were kids. She's like, I don't know him now. But I mean, we knew like at the time that he was, going to be a driver. That was his thing. And he left, I think in high school to go full time, try to be a driver. And he was just like amazed by the fact that she knew somebody that was doing this. And literally ever since then, he's watched every single race. So since March of last year, he's watched every race. When we're available on Sundays, he watches every second of the race. If not, we record it and he watches it the next day. Even if he knows the results, he'll ask us who won. He wants to know, but then he'll watch the whole race and really analyze it. And the way he is, he just memorizes everything, just like he memorized all those the Cars movies. And so, I mean, he knows who's won every championship. He knows all these details. He's always talking about NASCAR. He's got these magazines that he studies. I mean, he's just unbelievably into it. And so for his birthday this year, we knew like the thing he has to get is like, we've got to take him to a race. And I talked to a bunch of people, including Matt Crossman, who wrote for NASCAR magazine and has been involved in the sport for a while, about just, hey, I'm in Chattanooga. I'm like 2 hours from Atlanta, Nashville, Talladega, like fairly close to Charlotte, and then Bristol. Like, which race should we go to if we're going to go to our first one? And pretty universally, they were like Bristol. It's like the most fun. It's very unique. It's in the small, it's a small track, so you can actually see the entire track. The whole stadium's closed in. Like all these things that made it worth being your first race. And so for his birthday, we got him a trip to Bristol. But I've only been to one race. It was when I was a teenager. I didn't do any of the, planning of it. And I actually remember it pretty well, but still, like, this kind of felt like a first race for me. I mean, just buying the tickets, all that. And so for today's story, I'm going to give a lot, like my general take on the race, but just the entire process for anybody who's interested in going, or who just wants to hear about, what it's like basically as a first time race goer. And by the way, this hat I got for free at the Bristol race. This is actually for the race in Nashville, the Cracker Barrel 400, but I had to wear it because, I got it at the race and it's Cracker Barrel. So just want to call that out. I didn't go to the Cracker Barrel 400 yet, but maybe one day. So this is my just general take on basically first time NASCAR race, first time with my son. And I'll just off the top say it. It was awesome. Like maybe the most fun sporting event I've ever been to. Like the best sporting event I've ever been to, I went to a Liverpool game in Liverpool against Chelsea. I'm a huge Liverpool fan. That was unbelievable. I've been to lots of OU Texas games, which are incredible and intense and so much fun. But as far as just like pure entertainment and fun value, I can't think of anything better than what we did at Bristol. It was incredible. For one, kids under 12 are like really cheap to bring. It was like $10 or something. My ticket was fairly expensive, but you expect that for a big sporting event these days. But we get there. I was worried about parking, and the stadium holds 160,000 people. So I'm thinking like I'm going to be like dealing with a lot of parking issues and traffic and things like that. Small town, Bristol, which is, if you don't know, it's on the border of Tennessee and Virginia in the mountains there. Very pretty area, very pretty town. And I had never been there either, so that was part of the adventure, was getting up there. And we stayed in an Airbnb tucked away in a holler in the mountains near Elizabethton, which was like 25 minutes from Bristol. It was amazing. But we drive up there. We get there pretty early. Like the race is at 3. I think we got there at about 9:30, 9:45, because I wanted plenty of time to just hang out and not deal with parking issues and stuff. There's a lot directly across the street from the stadium that is free if you drive a Toyota. So that was awesome. I parked for free at this major sporting event, and even parking across the street was $30 if you wanted to pay, which at a Dallas Cowboys game, it's like over $100, or, any kind of major American sporting event, it's going to be a lot more than that. So that was, your first clue, like, okay, this is more affordable than you would expect. Lots of merch. They're hawking lots of merch. You could spend a lot of money on merch. You could, lose all your money on merch if you really wanted to. We bought one car. Carter, he got a new Chris Buescher car that was in a paint scheme he didn't have, and it was, $12 or something like that. Then we went over, and basically outside the stadium is like a fair. It's like a state fair, but everything basically is free. There's all kinds of stuff to do, and they're not nickel and diming you. It's just out there. It's all sponsored, of course, but they're giving away. We got two free hats. We could have gotten more hats and shirts and things that they're throwing out. Lots of booths for different things. They got NASCARs out there you can actually take a look at. And then they had this like RC car thing that Carter just became obsessed with, just watching these cars crashing, and you get to drive them. And we drove them for a while, and then he just watched them crash. And they have all the trailers for all the teams. And this was the one thing that I think was a miss for me, is that I didn't realize that before the race, these teams would have drivers come out and sign autographs. And yeah, I did check with the RFK team, which is Roush Fenway Keselowski. That's who owns Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece, and Brad Keselowski's cars. So that's his team. I went to their trailer, and none of those three were signing that day. So, if one of them had, we would have, prioritized that, but they weren't. But so it's kind of random, but that would have been cool. He wanted to have met a driver, but we just didn't get that timing right. And kind of the cooler drivers were coming a little bit later. And I just didn't expect the drivers to be out amongst the people the day of the race. I thought they would be locked in, tucked away, studying. I thought they'd be like Lightning McQueen in his trailer, like, I am speed, But for the most part, up until maybe an hour or two before the race, they have appearances. They've got to go do autographs. They've got to meet the sponsors. They're doing stuff, which I thought was really interesting. But we didn't get any of those autographs, but that's a really cool thing. That's not really happening in other sports where the athlete is out amongst the people up till pretty close before the race. In baseball, you'll see guys signing autographs as they're warming up and stuff like that. But football, basketball, it's not really as much of a thing. And baseball, I don't think is near as much as it used to be, but I could be wrong about that. But still, it felt like it's a very clear, purposeful thing to get the drivers out amongst the people. Like the athlete that people come to see, they have a really good chance of meeting them. And the other thing was they had a fan zone with a stage, and every 10 minutes a new driver would come out and do a little interview with the guy on the stage. And so you're right there, you're listening to some drivers, and they had it stacked, I think, to where it was kind of like some of the less popular guys went earlier, and then the more popular guys went later. Although we saw Ross Chastain, who's one of the most popular drivers. He came out fairly early and talked, and it just, it's very cool. They throw some stuff out at the fans, but it's only about, there were only about maybe 100 or less people standing right in front of the stage. So it's not like this big thing. I mean, if you want to get close to the drivers, like, you've got a really good chance. And so Carter thought that was really cool. I was starstruck because Red Panda, the lady who rides the unicycle and then throws the bowls on her head with her feet. And if you've seen Red Panda, you're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And if you haven't, you think I just made that up. But that's what this lady does. She's been doing it for like 30 years at like halftime shows at like NBA games. She was there. We got to see Red Panda. I mean, hard to beat that. Hard to beat your son's first time seeing Red Panda. He was almost confused. It's almost so amazing that he didn't even understand that it was that amazing. He's going to grow up in a world where he's already seen a lady riding a unicycle throwing a bowl on her head and then throwing more bowls. And then she got up to 5 bowls, threw them all on her head, caught him in the bowl that was already on her head. He's going to already have seen that. And maybe the rest of his life will be a disappointment. But you got to see Red Panda for the first time at some point. And he did. So this is where it gets really cool. Like, I knew that there was a way that you could get on the track early and go walk on the track before the race. And I found out it was like $60. It's like maybe 50 for me and like 10 for him. And I was like, you know what? We've got still like 3 hours before the race. This would be amazing. And so I went and I bought the tickets for that. And we go in the stadium, and it's a big stadium. We're walking around. We finally get onto the track, and we get down there, and I mean, it's pretty cool. You're on the track, you can see how high banked it is, and how just massive this stadium is, and you get to sign the tracks. We signed it, put our names on the start finish line, which was amazing. And then I look over, and there's Chris Buescher's pit crew, and Carter has a Chris Buescher shirt on. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And Chris Buescher, as much as we love him and as good of a driver as he is, he's not one of the more popular drivers. And I'm not saying anything offensive by saying that. He's just not one of the more popular drivers. He's kind of one of those guys that you have in different sports that is really consistent. Everyone acknowledges he's like one of the best drivers as far as just he can drive on almost any track. He finishes top 10 a lot, top 15 a lot. He's really, really, really consistent, but he doesn't win that much. But he also doesn't crash that much. He doesn't get did not finishes, DNFs. He is consistent. And so that is good for him, helps him stay a professional NASCAR driver, and gets his team, decent money consistently. NASCAR fans really like the Dale Earnhardt archetype, right? Like crash or get first. If you ain't first, you're last, basically. Ricky Bobby, like that's kind of what you like as a fan of NASCAR. And he's not really that. And, again, I'm not being offensive to him. That's just true. And so he doesn't have just a ton of fans at the track and things like that. So Carter has his Chris Buescher shirt on, his Cinnamon Toast Crunch car Chris Buescher shirt. And I was like, hey, let's go over and just like wave at the pits and just show them your shirt, and they'll probably think that's cool. And he's kind of nervous. And I was like, no, I promise you this will be cool. Like they're going to at least, wave back, because there's not that many people coming by, with Chris Buescher shirts on, especially kids. And so we go over there and we take a picture, and then they're not really looking. And then finally, like, we're not trying to be like, hey, we're just kind of standing there. And then finally one guy named Carl, who is, I think, the rear tire changer, he notices and he comes over to us and he's like, hey guys, this is awesome. And he goes, you want to come see the pits? And we were like, yeah, of course. He's like, come on. So we go around like the barrier and we go in and we are in pit row, and Carter takes a picture with the jackman and like the fueler, like these big, strong guys who are out there cleaning stuff, getting ready for the race. And then they just kind of showed us what everything is, how it works. And he takes us up into the crew chief box, and which is cool because Carter has always said that he doesn't want to be a driver. He wants to be a crew chief. If that shows you how risk averse he is, he would rather be a crew chief because he's kind of scared of the driving part of it, which, I mean, look, I am too. And so that was cool. He gets to see, what that view would be like. They've got all these monitors, and that Carl was telling us what each monitor does, which was really cool. And then he goes, you want to see the car? And so we go down and we walk across the infield over to where the cars are. Carter gets a picture with Chris Buescher's car. It was unbelievable. The only thing that would have made it better is if Chris himself had been around, but I think he was, getting ready for the race or doing an appearance or something like that. Didn't want to push our luck too much and be like, "Can you find Chris for us?" But it was great. I mean, Carl was super nice, answered all my questions, and just gave us this unbelievable experience for free. I mean, I think you can get that if you pay like a lot of money for like an infield pass, which I don't know, it was like $1,000. It was a lot, something I wasn't willing to do at all. And we got it for free because it's a very fan-friendly sport. And especially if you're a fan of a driver that isn't, Chase Elliott is the most popular driver. They say this all the time. Ryan Blaney is one of the most successful and popular drivers. And my almost 3-year-old son, those are his favorite drivers because he's always, around the sport now because we're watching it all the time. He has decided that Juan Bueno and Chase Elliott are his favorite drivers. And it makes sense. They say their names a lot. But if he showed up and was wearing one of their shirts, like, those teams would probably be like, "Hey, that's cool, thanks." So you and 50,000 other people, we can't give you a special treatment. Maybe they would. I'm not saying they wouldn't. I'm just saying like the odds are lower because those are the popular teams. And so being a fan of a driver that has a little less dedicated fans really paid off, and it was really cool. And I just want to shout out again Carl and the whole 17 team, the RFK team. Like, that was what a special thing. Like, I think my son's going to remember that for the rest of his life. And this is before the race hasn't even started, and we've already had like the best day. And then the race eventually does start, and it was unbelievable. I mean, the noise, and this is what I tell people, like, if you've never been to a NASCAR race, you've got to go at least once, because I cannot describe to you the sound of these cars. I can't put it into words. I can't put that feeling in your chest. They start up, and it is like 37 jet planes right in front of you. And in Bristol, because it's a Coliseum, they call it the last great Coliseum, it keeps that noise in there, and you just feel it in your body. And we had earplugs in, and we had over-ear headphones, and it was still so loud. We couldn't really talk the entire race because of the noise. But these things, I mean, these cars, it's like they have a personality. I mean, it's like they're angry. I mean, when they're under caution and they have to go slow, and then they have to speed up just a little bit, like to go into the pits or just to kind of, rev the engine a little bit, it literally sounds like an angry animal, just like, like, come on, let me go. Like, they're raring to go. And it's just unbelievable, the sound. It's really amazing. And to see the actual speed, and this is one of the smaller tracks, they're not even getting up close to their top speed, but they're constantly going around in a circle. And you can see the entire track, so you're not losing the cars at any point. And so we were able to watch Chris Buescher the entire race, who he was kind of stuck in between like 17th and 10th for the entire race, which was actually really interesting to watch a guy battle amongst the traffic. The leaders of this race actually was kind of boring. Blaney and Kyle Larson both led hundreds of laps each. And they were way out in front of everybody else. And that was not really entertaining. The entertainment was if you had a driver that was fighting to get from 20th to 10th or 10th to 5th. You could see how they have to strategize throughout the race. And being able to watch Chris Buescher, I watched him for, 30 laps take a high line when it seemed like everybody else was taking a low line. And I was like, what is he doing? But then I realized over time, hey, this is actually paying off. He's starting to pass some guys. He went from 15th to 12th over the course of time by picking this line that was different than other people. And just kind of learning some of that strategy by being at a race was fascinating, because you don't learn that on TV. You can't see your driver all the time unless your driver's at the front, because they're showing the leaders for the most part, and then they'll pop into some battles here and there. But for the most part, your guy isn't battling to pass somebody. He's trying to gain that extra, I don't know, half inch per lap or whatever, until he can actually make that pass. And so watching that was really, really fascinating. And the race itself, it was a little bit boring for a while, but when you're in person, it's not really boring. It's a little bit mesmerizing. You're kind of hypnotic as you're watching these cars go around, but you don't get bored because it's like all in front of you. And, at any point, whenever there was a caution, so whenever a crash happened, you wouldn't really see it or hear it because it's so loud. And if you're not watching that exact car that gets in the wreck, you don't, know it's going to happen. So you don't see it. But all of that noise when the cars are revved up and going as fast as they can, it all sucks out when they have to stop for caution. And it almost feels like a gut punch or like a vat you've been put in a vacuum. I mean, it just goes from just like this to like, because it's all stopped. And it's really like, whoa, what happened? What happened? Where's the crash? I mean, it's really just some of the cool rhythms and the experiences, the visceral experiences of the race were really amazing. And the race actually ended up being really a close finish at the end. It goes to overtime due to a couple crashes at the end. Ty Gibbs, the grandson of Joe Gibbs, former Redskins coach who owns racing teams, he got his first career win after 131 starts. And so that was actually cool to see. We're not Ty Gibbs fans. We're not Ty Gibbs haters either, but it wasn't who we wanted to win, but it was cool to see a guy's first ever win as opposed to someone's, 30th win. So it was a special thing to actually just see that, and he won it by a half second over Ryan Blaney. The cars were bumping as they went across the finish line. It was like, man, we couldn't ask for much more when it comes to the entire experience, the race, all of that. We just had an incredible time. The only thing I would say that I was surprised by was just the attendance. People talk about Bristol as this big event. Everyone around here knows about Bristol, even whether they care about NASCAR or not. They know Bristol is a track that people love, and it holds 160,000 people. So I was expecting 140,000 people there, maybe, and it was about 35 or 40% full, which I was just really surprised by. I kept thinking, like, when are people going to show up to their seats? And, the thing is, when something's 40% full, but it holds 160,000 people, 80,000 is half, so 40%. We're still talking about 65 or 70,000 people in the stadium. That's a huge race. That's a huge sporting event. That's bigger than any baseball game. That's the size of, like, pretty sizable college football stadiums. It's not like in Tennessee where there's 100,000 people at a football game, but for most college football games, that's good attendance, right? If you said you went to a sporting event with 65,000 people, people are like, man, that's incredible. But because the stadium was built for 160,000, you're looking at almost 100,000 empty seats. And so it was very strange to see that because I thought Bristol was like this big thing. I found out later that really the night race in the fall is kind of the event, and that one will get a lot closer to selling out, but the spring race less so. And it was hot. I mean, it was certainly hot. We were in the blazing sun for most of the day. It was like 80 degrees, which is unseasonably warm for the area. And things are expensive these days. Gas is really expensive. Hotel prices are expensive. We were fortunate that the Airbnb we found was pretty affordable and nice and in a beautiful area. But I think it was less than all hotel rates. We paid like $130 a night for our Airbnb, and I think I would have paid $250 or more for a hotel. So I get it. Money's tight and all of that. I just was surprised by that. And I've seen a lot of commentators, because I'm basically in like the NASCAR algorithm now, so I get all these clips. And I've seen people talking about it, so I'm not the first one to bring this up. But it was interesting. It was surprising, but took a little bit away from the experience just because I was envisioning packed stadium, the roar of the crowd. The cars are so loud that you can't hear the crowd anyway. Like I thought at some point, I was like, am I the only one cheering right now? Because I can't hear anybody else. But and then I looked and I was like, oh, other people are cheering, but it's just so loud that you can't really hear it. But every seat in there is great. Our seats were amazing. We could see the entire race. We had the start-finish line over to the left, and we could see the whole thing. And I'll have, you'll be seeing pictures if you're watching the video, and then I'll also put these in story or in my Instagram post. So if you are listening, you can go look at those. But yeah, overall, one of the most fun sporting events, one of the most fun things I've ever done. My son's dreams came true. He loved it. He's been talking about it ever since. He wants to go to all kinds of races. He's like, when can we go to the Cracker Barrel 400? When can we go to Echo Park in Atlanta? When can we go to Talladega? All these things. I'm like, I don't know. We got to pump the brakes. It wasn't the cheapest weekend of my life. But I absolutely will go back to Bristol 100%. I'd love to go to the night race when he's older. I'd love to bring our younger son when he's old enough to do all that walking and, not get grumpy and that kind of thing, because it was just so fun and so family friendly. I didn't see anybody drunk. It was not what you think when it's just like drunk rednecks everywhere or whatever. Maybe that's Talladega, but Bristol was just like fun. People were having fun and having a good time without it being annoying or sketchy or, I didn't see any fights. So it wasn't like an NFL game. There were no fights. It was just people there to have a good time and watch some racing. And it was incredible. And I would say anybody, whether you're a NASCAR fan or not, whether you don't care about NASCAR at all, you got to go to one race in your life. And I would say Bristol, again, I've only been to two, but it would be hard to beat the Bristol race. And I think whether you care about it at all, you would have a great time. So put it on your bucket list. Make it out to Bristol Motor Speedway. The city of Bristol was super fun. Again, the area was beautiful. It was 10 out of 10. We really enjoyed it. And so that is your fifth sunroom story. Okay, it's time for Wiki Wondering. And this is the segment where whatever I've read on Wikipedia that week that I find the most interesting, I talk about it. Not a super planned out segment in the sense of I'm not trying to make any major points or anything like that. It's just literally like I look at my Wikipedia history and I go, well, okay, that's what I'm going to have to talk about this week because that's what I found most interesting. But today's is a really good one, and it explores the question, who is the world's most famous greyhound? And the world's most famous greyhound, according to Wikipedia, was in the 1960s. The Greyhound Bus Company had a mascot called Lady Greyhound. You'll see the picture right here. Lady Greyhound, a beautiful greyhound. She wore a diamond tiara, a diamond necklace, and she would go around the country. And she first started on the Steve Allen show. She was named Steve Areno. But then left Steve Allen's show and became they gave her the name Lady Greyhound. And she would go on TV. She would go to charity events. She would go to public parades. She was like world famous. She had her own fan clubs. She was a symbol of Philadelphia's safety campaign. And they had her insured by Lloyd's of London for $300,000. That's how special she was. She did not travel the country on buses because dogs are not allowed on Greyhound buses. She flew on private jets around the country for different appearances. She was one of the most famous animals in the world. She, in fact, won numerous awards, including Bide a Wee Medal. I don't know what that means. Outstanding Dog of 1961. Queen of Transportation Week. And she was a chair of the pet division of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. This dog was so famous. She was the symbol for World Animal Day in 1961. She had a wardrobe with coats and mufflers. She went to hospitals. She would give interviews on radio and TV. I understand the TV part. I don't understand the radio part. She mixed with models in fashion events and department stores. In 1963, she attended the New York World's Fair where she had her own fashion show and handed out pawtographs. In the next year's fair, she had 800 shows and had her own car and personal handler. It's unbelievable how famous this dog was. She of course, was, a lot of charity events, parade circuits. She even appeared at the opening of the company's new corporate headquarters in Chicago, which obviously that's the only reason people are going. They don't need to see a building. They want to see Lady Greyhound. And so you may think that Lady Greyhound is the most famous greyhound in the world because that's what I just talked about. That's what Wikipedia said. But no, I'll show you the most famous greyhound in the world. It's the one that lays next to me during this podcast and is always incredibly annoyed that I woke her up at 6 a.m. to do this. Behold. That's right. Today's Wiki Wondering was just so I could show the viewers my dog, Gertie, a greyhound, who lays next to me during these podcasts. She is the world's most famous Greyhound. And that's your Wiki Wondering. If you're a listener and you missed seeing Lady Greyhound, aka Gertie, you're going to have to go watch the video on YouTube. Or maybe I'll post a picture on Instagram. But I'm sorry if you're just listening because you missed out on a very important thing. Segment 3, I'm going to name this Scott Bedgood's Hot Takes. And this is where if I have a hot take, I'm going to share it at the end of the episode so it can get buried and no one will see it and I won't make anyone mad. But I was thinking about this. We were listening to a lot of country music on the way up to the Bristol race. My son, honestly, let me play most of my music, and I played a lot of old school country. Played a lot of Charlie Crockett, which is new school but old school. He loves bluegrass, but we listened to mostly country, some bluegrass, but mostly country on the way up to Bristol. And I was listening to a lot of these songs, and I was noticing, obviously, there's a lot of common themes in country music. But one song that my son really, really liked was Long Hot Summer Day by Turnpike Troubadours, originally written by John Hartford. But it's the old towboat picking up barges on a long, hot summer day. And I was thinking about this is a whole song about a guy doing a job. And he's kind of, he's tired and he's working hard and he gets off work and what he's drinking or whatever. But the idea, I was thinking country songs are about a lot of country songs, folk songs, blues songs, bluegrass songs, even a lot of, rock songs are about working hard. They're about going to work and then getting off work and feeling beaten down, but feeling kind of satisfied, right? You're feeling proud of your work. They're about being coal miners and farmers and towboat drivers and truckers and doing these things that are the physical labor that are not easy, and you're not necessarily even loving it when you're doing it, but you feel good when you're done. And there's also a lot of pushback with modern country music, because modern country music, we're it's not about anything, right? It's all about it's about partying, right? It's about partying, going to, a barn party with your friends, or it's just or maybe a love song, but a crappy love song. And I was thinking about it's one of the reasons it's hard to write a modern country song, is because we don't have jobs with dignity like that anymore, right? If you're farming, or if you're driving a towboat, or if you're just working hard, you're working in a factory, there's this idea of you're working hard but you could see the fruits of your labor, right? I planted this many crops today, I built this many cars today, I did this many things, these physical things that people can go use, or I grew food, or these things like that. But there are not country songs about showing up to work, which is, in your own bedroom, and opening up your laptop and having a bunch of Teams messages to reply to, and then getting on Microsoft Outlook and not being able to find the email you're looking for, and then having AI create a deck for you, and then presenting that deck in a virtual meeting with your coworkers, where they're using their AI note takers to take notes on the presentation that you're giving, which was created by AI. And then after that meeting, you go directly into another meeting where someone else does the same thing, and you send your note taker, and it's lunchtime and you're eating your lunch at your desk, staring at the screen while someone talks about something that they had AI create. And then you do that until the end of the day, and then your day ends and you leave your office, and then for the rest of the evening you're checking your phone in case your boss sends you Teams messages or Outlook emails, and you're never able to turn off from that job because it happened at your house and it was on a screen, and you have a screen in your pocket and your boss can reach you at any time. And they don't make songs about this kind of work because it's not dignified work. We're not doing anything, and we're still getting stressed and tired about it, but not in a I did my thing. I helped out on the railroad today. I swung my hammer. I got things done. So many of us have jobs that we don't feel like we do anything. And that's why they can't write modern country songs. because they can't write songs about stuff that most of us are doing. So the only thing they can write about is partying. And I don't know, maybe a lot of people are partying. They probably are. But, it used to be the country songs and folk songs and all these other songs were about the labor that most people who were listening to that music were doing. And frankly, I just don't know that there's that many people out there doing that kind of thing anymore. And I don't know if this is a hot take. This is Scott Bedgood's hot takes, but it's just a thought I had of like, I like to hate on modern mainstream country music too, but I also am now realizing like, man, what do they have to write about? What do we have that we can feel good about doing at work? I do this. I tell jokes. I perform. I coach speakers, and I write. And that's kind of how I feel about the content marketing stuff sometimes is like, man, what am I? Who cares about this? And look, clients, please keep paying me. But I just do feel this, like, I want to get away from my computer. I don't want to be on the computer all day anymore. I want my career to be in front of people, out and about. But just, I can't stand the idea of, I'm 35 now. I can't stand the idea of 30 plus more years of sitting on a computer. It just doesn't feel dignified or real anymore. And that's my hot take. Let's do real stuff so we can have better country music. Okay, guys, that is episode 5. Thank you so much for listening. If you've been to the Bristol race, share your thoughts on it. What did you go to this year's? Tell me how it was. What did you think? Tell me what's the next race I should go to. Like I said, I'm close to Atlanta. I'm wearing a Cracker Barrel 400 hat, which is in Nashville. I know Talladega is like a big deal. I've heard it's not great necessarily for kids because it is a bigger party atmosphere. If I'm wrong about that, tell me. But let me know, what's the next race that we should go to? Probably next year because, again, it wasn't cheap. But, yeah. Or should I go to the Bristol night race? Like, I just would love to hear your thoughts and, what's your feedback when it comes to my thoughts on the attendance and things like that. Please share that in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation about that. And listen to the other episodes. We've got some fun stories. Every episode is just a different story from my life. Sometimes it's what I've done currently, what I've done recently, and sometimes it's, from the past. Last week I talked about getting on an under 30 list that I didn't deserve to get on, where I scammed my way onto it. That was from several years ago. And so, yeah, coming up, I've got a really, really busy May of shows. I am with Dusty Slay in Dallas at the Majestic on May 1st. That is going to be super fun. That's where I got my comedy start, was in Dallas, and really excited to be back there playing the Majestic. Never thought that would happen. And then I am doing a community event here in Chattanooga, TVFCU's Idea Leap event, which is kind of like Shark Tank for local businesses. And then there's judges, and while the judges are deliberating who to give the final prize to, I'll be doing 10 minutes of comedy at that event, which I think will be really fun. Just kind of do some showcase what I can do in front of the community here, people who may not necessarily come to comedy shows. And then I will be in Panama City, May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd in different venues around Panama City with Ron Hortman. And I'll also be Nateland Live May 11th. So I'll be back at Nateland Live and New Material Monday in Nashville at Zanies on May 11th. So a lot of shows coming up. Really excited about all of those. I will see you guys out there. But thank you for joining once again on Sunroom Stories.